Walk in beauty, it's all around you. Walk in beauty, let love surround you. Walk in beauty, make it around you. Walk in beauty with love for all.
I'm excited about this one because it's about initiation. And I was just visiting with a wonderful gal on one of my interviews recently. Her name is Jane Hardwick Collins. She's a shamanic midwife and practitioner of feminine ways, a wonderful wild woman. And she was saying something I thought was very interesting. She said that all of the initiations, the big things that happen to women are shamanic initiations. They're very, very, very powerful. And that made me think a lot about the different things we're going to talk about today, and how when we can allow them to be and really honor them and respect them and nurture ourselves through them, they're transformative. They're meant to be transformative, and they're meant to give us a baseline to stand on for the next level of our life. So the first one of those is our birth. Our birth is this amazing event. How many of you that I can see right now can say that you have been at a birth? Have you actually witnessed a birth of anyone or had your own birth? So some of you have birthed children, and sometimes it's a little different when you're standing there watching the whole thing. But those are amazing experiences. My sense when I watched a birth, because I've not given birth in this life, when I watched it, when that child crowned and came out, this beautiful little girl, it's like golden light just spread all over that room. It was just like, and I mean, it just gives me chills to think of it even now. So what's happening is that the wings of spirit are just blowing open for that newborn and totally taking us into this very shamanic kind of place. And so for the child, they're bringing this amazing experience and having this amazing experience. If you can imagine being, in this exquisite, lovely, lovely cradle of water, and then having to compress and move out into a world that many times may not be as welcoming as we would wish it would be for children. And one of the things that's so important is that our birthing is kind and gentle. And we're starting to find more and more of that. But for a long time, births were clinical, hard, surgery. It was like you were sick or something. It's like this kind of awful sense of birthing rather than this joyous, wonderful, women-supported, midwife-supported kind of experience. And I love to hear my old friend Suyu from the Pueblo people. He said that they used to, the kids just ran around in big herds, the older ones took care of the tiny ones, and they were in these big herds of kids, and they knew what pregnancy was. There was somebody pregnant, and they said, then the midwife, they knew who she was. She'd be hurrying across the village, and they would go and sit outside and wait. And when the baby had come, the midwife or someone else who was helping would come to the door and say, "She comes," or "He comes." And that's the name of the child for the first 6 weeks until they go into their baptism. And that baptism, well, first of all, it's really, really important that children be nurtured and kept home and quiet, and the mother be quiet, and everybody is nurtured and rested and get used to this incredible different world out here. I'm blown away when I see people with these teeny tiny babies in Walmart, just letting everybody's energy and the lights and the sound and all of that affect these little teeny, teeny, tiny, beautiful children. So I think finding ways to be more gentle and to take gentle care of both mother and child and allow that child to come in. And baptism is an ancient rite, and it has to do with bringing the child in a sense, clean, because there's been all this influence in the womb and influence around, everything touches everything. And so baptism is about cleaning, taking water and cleansing, cleaning away anything that is not the child's. And often salt from the area, the minerals of the area, the earth elements are given to the child on their tongue. And then they are named one way or the other. In the old Pueblo way, the oldest grandmother would hold that baby up and say, "Creator, who is this?" And the grandmothers would get the name, and it was a name that had never been heard before and never used again. So that baptism, that clearing, that cleaning, and then they also, part of that is to have godparents. So any of you who have children, it's like, boy, oh boy, wouldn't it be nice to have a next door neighbor that was totally the godparent. That was the other parent, the other parents. And so they would have an official set of godparents. And then basically they would say, "This is not your child. This is Creator's child. You're here to take care. You parents, you're here to take special care. And all of you godparents, you're committing as well. And the rest of the whole community, this is your child. This is a child of life, and it's your child to take care of." So it was a very different energy. And I think we need to move back more into that sense of things where it's like one gal said to me, when I was a child, if we went over to Johnny's place and we did something ornery, Johnny's mother was able to discipline us. Now, if somebody has a kid at their place, they're frightened to even say anything to them because, it's like, "Oh my God, it's not my kid." It's like, it's like, to have that child be a child of life and a child of our community, I think is so important. So another thing to think about with birth, and I'm just kind of wrapping here and just letting this run, thinking about all the wonderful things about birth that come to mind. And one of the things, though, that's really interesting, and I want to invite you to do, is I want you to learn about your birth. Hopefully, most of you have, maybe some of you don't. Some of the more white-haired ones of us maybe don't have our moms around. But it's really important for you to ask your mom about your birth and find out what happened there, because that really set an imprint for you. And here's another thing, and I won't go into this really deeply, but I also found out that the adrenal set of the mother, like if your mother's like, "Ah," you in the womb get that same adrenal set. So you come out with that adrenal set, which could be on cranked up and freaked out because of what your mother had happening in her system. So all of that is communicating itself, and you pick that up as a child. And then your birth is so important. And I was telling Jane something. I said, well, she was saying how important it is to learn the lessons and to understand what happened at your birth. And I said, what was interesting for me is that my mom said they jerked me out with forceps. She said, I think the guy wanted to go party Saturday night, so he jerked you out, and then they cut your cord. And my experience in my memory when I go back into that is that I couldn't breathe. They cut the cord too soon, and I had no breath. I was dying as I was born. Well, what has that done? What did that set in my experience of this world? Wasn't too great. That and my mother's high adrenal crank and freaked out nature was very challenging to deal with. So it's really interesting for you to look at that and go, okay, that's what happened. Now, how can I look back at that, and how can I begin to shift that and recognize it? But there was also something very sweet that Jane said to me. She said, well, She said, yes, you had some big challenge there. That wasn't kind, it wasn't gentle, and it wasn't any fun for you, for sure. But she said, you know what that did? That made you adapt immediately. You had to adapt or die. And she said, that made you incredibly adaptive, able to adapt to things. And I said, well, wow, I can run around the world and be in a new place every week and be with new people and do all of this stuff. And I mean, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that ability to adapt and move and change and make quick adaptation is part of what I learned there. So, it's like that interesting balance. So I'd like you to go to, learn as much as you can about your birth and look at it not only as that hopefully there was some incredible sweetness, and there may have been some challenges of some kind. So to look at that, and I'm just going to briefly say here that when I look back at those things and realized that I had been set up in a sense for tension and anxiety and all of that, even as I came in as a baby. And that, continued, and I've worked with it through a lot of my life. But when I was really working shamanically and in other ways about that, I said to Great Mother, well, if my body has never even known anything different, how in the heck can I change it? I mean, it's just so deeply me. It's not even, it's like in me. It's like, it's not even something external to me. It's like, anyway, I was feeling a little bit hopeless. And I love this answer. And I want you to hear this really clearly. The Great Mother said this. She said, you can do a sweet clearing. And this is what I do in my private sessions when I work with people. And that sweet clearing says that when things happen, we set energies and we set them to hold things, to hold tension, to hold a high adrenal crank, to hold this, to hold that, to not do this, to not do that. All of those things we set in our childhood, in a sense. And she said, you know what? Those energies are tired of holding that for you. They would be thrilled to let that go. So that's how I talk to those energies and those patterns is, come on, come on, come on. Come here, come here. It's time to free you. It's time. You get to go. You get to go into the light. You get to go into love and light and transform yourself and do something so much fun, so much more fun than what you've been doing. And all that needs to happen is the person who has been holding those needs to say, yes, let them go. So to me, that was really hopeful. When my logical mind said maybe there wasn't so much hope. So talk to those patterns that way and say, hey, thank you. I know somehow you got set and you've been helping me out with that all along because that's what was there. But hey, guess what? It's celebration day. You get to go. You get to be released. You get to be cleared and transformed in love and light.